So the first thing that I'm going to share with you is if you would like access to this presentation yourself, or if you like to save this presentation, you can use that bit.ly. For those of you that have joined live today, I'm going to pop that into the chat for you. And then today we're really looking at that Google Gemini AI. And I wanted to share with you some of the creation tools and updated features that they've added in since the last time we did a webinar. And in this, you can go ahead and follow along with me, or you can do that watching and then use that slide deck later if you want. Overall, what I'm hoping that you'll gain from this is that together we'll explore the new and updated features in Gemini. And then I'm also going to go over to NotebookLM and show those features there. And then we'll distinguish between which AI tool you might want to choose to select based on the task or the purpose. So prior to this, we did trainings on Gemini, the chat, and then we've looked at NotebookLM. They both really use some of the same functionality on the back end, but what they produce and the purpose for each of them is slightly different. So I want to tease that out to help you determine which tool is best for you. And then we'll do this by quickly reviewing what our ESU3 license is. I like to do this at the start of all of the webinars, just in case anybody's new. And then also a reminder of where you can get the recordings. Then we'll jump into a Gemini and looking at their deep research tool and their ability to build Google Slides. And then we'll jump over to NotebookLM and look at building infographics and slide decks. And then after that, I'm really going to give a little bit of information around the purpose behind using Gemini versus that NotebookLM. We'll close out and be prepared. I will be asking you, what idea might you take from this and integrate into your work? The format of the webinar is different than a hands-on one that we might be doing live. This is really demonstration purposes, with the idea that you can always go back to that recording. If it helps you to take notes, have a pad of paper out, pen of, oh, I want to go back and watch this. I want to see this. If you're pretty savvy or you have a couple screens, you can try the tools along with me. But watching it on Zoom, if it's more helpful to watch me do it the first time, and then you can go back and practice that. So a little bit about the licensing at ESU3. You are under the Google Education Fundamentals license. And Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, that hasn't changed. And that's going to give you access to really two powerful AI tools. Gemini, that you can go in and work with as a chat bot, similar to what you might use in ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity. And then NotebookLM, that is going to allow you to select very specific sources to chat around and do some other functions with AI in there. If you are using your Google account under your ESU3 login, then it's going to provide for you that higher protection. And it's really important that you are in your ESU3 account when you're utilizing it for work, because that protection is going to give you a layer of protection that you wouldn't get from a consumer version of a Google account. So I have a Google account that I use that I give like my kids' school and my kids' coaches, and I use it for my personal life. If I was going into the Gemini under that account, it's not going to have the same protections. And what's nice, when I get into Gemini, I'll show you at the bottom, it gives us a little phrase that says, this is not training our AI models. And then just as a reminder, all of our previous webinars were recorded and are on our ESU3 TV playlist on YouTube. So you can always get back to these. There are currently 2 on the playlist. It might start playing right away. We did the chats and gems in Gemini and NotebookLM overview. And so we'll be going deeper into those today. If you miss those and are coming in as a new learner, I will just talk about some of the prior things, but I won't necessarily be demonstrating them. So let's talk a little bit about Gemini chat, and then I'll get into the demonstration piece. The first image in September shows us that what was available to you was guided learning, Canvas, and creating images along with the chat. But as of today, you would also be able to see deep research, and the Canvas has added the ability to create slide decks. So we're going to do a demo on deep research, and I'm going to demonstrate it by first asking Gemini to provide the best prompt for me to ask deep research, because what I've found out from wonderful Christine Qualman is you can ask the AI chat to give you the best prompt, because the better the prompt, the better the output that you're going to get. And then I'll show you how you can make a Google slide presentation and export that out to Google Drive. So this is the chance here. You can watch me or you can try to play along depending on where your level of learning is at. So first, let's talk about how you can get to Gemini quickly. Anywhere inside your Google Drive, I'm going to turn on my little pink circle here. Anytime that you're in your Gmail, calendar, or Drive and you're near that apps launcher, you're going to be able to see Gemini. And then further down, you should see NotebookLM. I had one teacher that did not see NotebookLM until they Googled NotebookLM and went to it for the first time. So if you're missing it, you can always Google for it and then make sure that you're logged in under your work account. So inside Gemini, here's your standard chat window. And what we're going to be looking at first is I want to demonstrate how you can use this new tool inside there called Deep Research. And Deep Research is going to act as your AI assistant researcher. So if I were to just ask a basic text prompt, maybe something like, tell me about student engagement and what I should tell teachers, it will like in seconds give me back some ideas. But Deep Research is going to take 2 or 3 minutes, maybe even longer, depending on the research I request. It's also going to be much more robust what it brings back. So on a different document here, I'm going to copy paste my prompt that I'm going to use. And I'm not going to choose deep research yet. I'm going to ask Gemini to give me a good prompt before I start my deep research. So here's my prompt. I want to use the deep research feature in Gemini to develop a report on teacher clarity as I prepare for an upcoming training. Write a prompt I could input into Gemini using the deep research tool to get the best output. So I'm using Gemini to build a really good AI prompt for me so that I don't miss some specific things. Like it's saying, make sure you define the persona, the scope of the educational research, any specific components of teacher clarity that I might want. So they've recommended this prompt. The topic, the persona, they want it to act as an expert instructional coach, specializing in John Hattie's visible learning. I really like that because we lean on John Hattie's visible learning research a lot. The task, conduct deep research, and then it's asking for some specific pillars, a foundational definition, core components, and so on. And then it gives it the output requirements. It even tells me why this prompt is going to work best and then how to do this in Gemini. So I'm going to walk through those steps. It says to select the deep research tool. When I get this, it's telling me I'm going to go to a new chat. So I'm not going to do that first. I'm going to copy the recommended prompt. And then when I choose deep research, it's going to open up a new chat for me. The deep research is done in its own chat conversation. So there's that really robust prompt. That would have taken me a lot of mental energy and time to construct that quality prompt. So that's a good tool to use the chat feature for. So make sure you have deep research selected. And when I submit it, it's going to start to process how it's going to do the deep research for me. Now, while it's doing this, just a reminder, it really does turn out some really good research, but every AI tool has potential for hallucinations where it might bring back something that is not truly in there. I haven't found that much, but I do want to always warn you of that. Now, the next step before you hit start research is look at what it's planning to go do. So it's going to research John Hattie's meta-analysis. It's going to explore practical implementations of learning intentions. It's going to identify 5 to 7 high leverage classroom strategies, researching the concept of fake clarity. I've never heard of that myself, so I'm curious. Gathering concrete examples of low clarity. Okay, I like that. And it's going to use reputable professional development resource articles, white papers from Corman, ASCD, and the Visible Learning Database. And then it's going to synthesize the gathered information. It'll analyze the results, create the report, and so on. So if there's ever anything in here that you are thinking, you know what, that's maybe not who I want you to lean on the work of, you can go in and edit the plan. And then you can say, also include any real life case scenarios from districts that have reported implementation success. I'll just add that in there. So I'll add that in. Yesterday, I was working with Audra, who I saw is on the call, and she noticed that the deep research was referencing an old website that had recently been renovated in a new website. So she asked for it to change out the old website to the more up-to-date one. It gives me the updated plan. I'm feeling good about this, and I'm going to start the research. Now, what's really nice about starting the research is it's going to take quite a bit of time. And sometimes it will even tell you, you know what, you're free to leave this chat. Let me do my work right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up and expand my menu, and I'm going to show you an example of some deep research that it finished for me yesterday. So here's the deep research prompt that I did on teacher clarity yesterday. And then this is where I got my prompt and pulled it in, and then it gave me this research report once it was finished. It took probably 7 to 10 minutes, I would say. I was busy on another tab, so I didn't quite pay attention to it. But what it gives me is this really deep research on a topic that maybe I'm newer to, and I really need to get my mind wrapped around it. And then I have the option, I showed on a previous webinar, you have the option to export that to Google Docs. And then you can utilize that wherever you want. You can also create this as a source and bring it into your NotebookLM if you want that source. But it's a really nice way to get some deep research on a topic. The one that Audra was using yesterday was working with early childhood students and supporting teachers with challenging behaviors. And she wanted to do some deep research around what would be some strategies, what's kind of best practices, what's the latest research on students that within that age band. So deep research, great new tool available to all of you. Let's see, next step. I'm going to move into demonstrating while that research is going on. We'll go back and check on that later. And it's still busy working on there. I'm going to show you how you can use the tool Canvas to construct a slide deck now. And I'll show you an example of what that looks like from a previous one. So in a previous one, we looked at how you could ask it to build out the outline for a workshop that you have coming up or a professional learning. So I had an upcoming workshop that was going to be an hour. It was going to be around student engagement in secondary classrooms. I wanted potential outcomes, success criteria, and a general outline. And it constructed that for me. And then I moved it into my Google Drive. And I'm going to pull that into, here's my demonstration resources here, that workshop plan that it constructed for me. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to utilize that to now create a slide deck. So to demonstrate this, I'm going to open up a new chat. And this feature was not available in Canvas when we were together in September. And Canvas was in there, and I was able to demonstrate how to make documents and infographics. But now you can explicitly ask it to build a Google slide deck for you. So that's what I'm going to demonstrate next. But what I want to do is I want to build off of that plan that it already gave me. So I could say just build a general slide deck with student engagement, make sure it has outcomes. I want to cover these specific topics. But because it already built that out for me the prior time, I'm going to go get that from my recent Google Drive. And there's that outline that it did for my 1 hour. And then for this, I'm going to also give it a prompt that I already have saved. Let me minimize this screen and I'll copy paste it so you don't have to watch me do this. So you would type in the important words that you want to use in there is you want to tell it to design a Google slide deck, because Canvas can design Google Docs, infographics, website prototypes, coding. You want to tell it exactly what it is that you want it to create. And then I'm going to tell it for a 1-hour presentation. And then I'm also going to say, use the attached ESU3 style guide for colors and fonts. I want a light background with a dark navy as text and maroon and teal as accents. So what I keep on my desktop at all times, and you can also keep it in your drive, is the ESU3 style guide that has our branding. And when I bring this in, it's going to brand my Google slide deck according to the colors and fonts within that. Now, I'm also trying to increase my accessibility for my participants. And I've found recently that the Lexend font in Google is the best one for dyslexic readers. So I'm going to specifically add in, I want a Lexend font and all titles to be 24 point and text to be 18 point or higher. Because what I found is when I was first asking it to do some of the Google slides is it would make the font size super small and I'd have to go change that on all of the slides or reprompt it. So let's review some of the things that I've done. I've made sure the Canvas tool is showing. I brought in the outline or any information that might support the Google slide content. I attached the ESU3 style guide and specifically referenced what the style was that I wanted. I'm going to go ahead and send that in. And it's going to design that slide deck for me. Now, similar to a nice baking show, I'm going to let it continue working there, and I'm going to show you what that looks like once it's done. So here is the exported Google slide deck that it created for me. I like that it used the colors for our ESU3 branding. It brought in some nice visual icons to go along with what the learning objectives were. It has the font choices that I asked. If I click on part 1, it did use Lexend. The title here happens to be 60. The title here happens to be 33. It brought in some visual images. And what I love about it in Gemini, when it exports to Google Drive, I have all the abilities to go in and edit the text, edit the pictures, replace them, add in slides, change slides, do anything that I want within that. So I'm going to pause there before I move on and look at the chat. Will this feature also make the slide deck ADA compliant? It's getting there a little bit closer because I asked for a specific size font. It asked for a specific dyslexic friendly font styles. I have a color contrast that I know is really good as a dark color against a light background. That's why I specifically asked for a light background and chose the darker text. I am concerned that it made some of my text this teal against a light. So I would have to go in and visually change that because it didn't do that. I could maybe reprompt it and say, do not use any teal color. I noticed that you use teal in it. I would also need to be ADA compliant. I would have to go in and put in my alt text in the format under here for every image. So the description that it put in there is image PNG. I would have to say there are 3 students talking together in a group to make it ADA compliant. So Audra, great question. It's getting me closer, but there's some things that I would still have to do to make it truly accessible according to the new regulations. Continue to ask those questions. Those were the things that I definitely wanted to show you in. I'm looking at my outline here to make sure. Bill, anything you would add before I move into our NotebookLM demo?
No, I was going to bring up the ADA stuff, so Amy and you hit that perfectly.
Okay. And I'm using a free version of Gemini here. So it looks like I'm hitting some of my reaching my limits because I used a lot of it yesterday late and it's on a 24-hour refresh. So good thing I'm moving on. Let's check out some of our NotebookLM stuff. So NotebookLM in September, I demonstrated that audio overview and video overview, a little bit of the mind map. I didn't show you the reports, but that's another feature within it. But since then, they have really bulked up NotebookLM. You now have flashcards and quiz, infographics you can create, slide decks you can create there. They're in beta. So there's a couple things I've noticed, like some misspelled words when those infographics and slide decks come out. And then I did include in the slide deck some how-to videos on flashcards and quizzes because I don't really plan to dive into those too much. I really want to get into the infographic and slide deck piece. And then I'm going to, if there's time, and there may not be time today, so I included a bonus video. The one feature I don't like in NotebookLM is that the infographic and slide deck, you cannot edit them. And so there's something I want to edit in an infographic. It produced a gorgeous infographic for me, and there were two words misspelled on it. So I brought it into Canva and used the magic grab tool, and I was able to edit that text. But now that's kind of a slightly bringing in another tool. So if you're not familiar with Canva, that's a lot. So whether I demonstrate that on here or not, I really want to get into some other specific things. And then the last thing I'll share with you before we go to NotebookLM is just yesterday, my account that I used to demonstrate data table popped up. It was only for the pro feature for a while, but just yesterday, data tables rolled into my version of NotebookLM. What I will say is sometimes it rolls across our ESU3 employees at different rates. So if we go into NotebookLM and you don't see data tables in there for you, it will be getting there eventually. Sometimes updating your Chrome might trigger it to come in also. But I did include a link to a video around how you can use data tables. But let me jump into NotebookLM. Just as a quick reminder, you can get to NotebookLM also in your Google Apps Launcher. And NotebookLM is different than Gemini. I'm going to really tease that out after I do the demo. But essentially, you can construct notebooks on any topic using just the sources that you want the AI large language learning model to point to and synthesize and get ideas from and access, make it more accessible for you. So in this one, I'm going to be opening up in my demo account, my NotebookLM. And this one is one we were using for our Inclusive Practices Academy. And we were supporting our general education teachers and our special education teachers to really look at how they could use a student's IEP to support their lesson design for daily instruction. Now, I know that not every employee here would be doing something around this scope, but what I really want in this notebook is really focused on this topic. And I have very specific sources that I've added inside here. So I've included the ESU3 style guide because that's going to be important when I start building my infographic and my slide deck. I've also included the document that I want it to reference. And I'm going to open up that document because you can't really see it easily when you're in NotebookLM. So I want you to see what this document looks like that was provided from SPED Strategies. It's a really nice PDF that supports educators in getting a really good overview of the ins and outs of an IEP, how to use the IEP, what are the key information, what's some of the vocabulary around it. It gives a nice case study of what it would look like with a teacher working with a special education teacher on supporting a student. And then it talks about some key terminology, present level academic functioning, and what it suggests that you stop doing and start doing as best practice, special factors to consider, and then accommodations, and then related services. So it's a really nice document, but it's a lot. We did a whole jigsaw. It took a lot of time, but to support our learners a little bit more, I wanted to use NotebookLM to provide a slide deck that would allow a presenter to walk through some of this alongside them, and an infographic. So the features, I could also do an audio overview if I was just learning about it, or get a video to explain it. But what I want to model for you is the infographic and then the slide deck. And once I create them, they're going to become sources within my studio that I can come back to. Now, I'm going to show you what they look like once you're done. Then I'm going to come back and show you how I made it. So the bridging IEPs to daily instruction, I prompted it, and then it constructed this visual that supports somebody looking at the journey as they're using an IEP, as they're planning their instruction. But notice they dropped related services underneath. I would really like it up here. And then they pulled the stop this and start this and stop this and start this for each of those different areas. And there's a little misspelling right here. Notice this word exclusively should be exclusively. So I need to correct that. So this is in beta form, and with AI, it's going to make mistakes. It's going to keep getting better. But what I can do is I can show you the prompt that I used. And I can take this prompt and I can copy it, and I'm going to walk you through how to build an infographic. So with this infographic, I wanted to build it using the ESU3 colors and branding. I wanted to build it from this source. If I had several other sources, I would uncheck all sources and make sure I only had the sources I wanted it to point to.
Hey,
And then
Eileen,
it
can I just real quick? So I love the style guide. I would say that is a great idea. Just trying to keep everything together for ESU. If you don't know how to get to the style guide, it is on the staff website. But if you put a ticket in, we can send you the link to that too. Because once you have it, you could just use that over and over. You just need it that one time. So
Yeah, excellent. And at the end here, I'll just pop it in the chat too for anybody that wants, or if you will have access, Bill, if you wouldn't mind popping that into the chat too. So the trick behind this is if I just push infographic, it's just going to start looking at my sources. It's going to build an infographic, but I really wanted it specific to the start this, stop this, start this for each of the things. So I was very specific with my prompt. If you want to be specific, you can click on the pencil. If you're like, I don't even know what I want, I just want an infographic, just hit the button. But I want the pencil, and it's going to open up this option where I can select what style of language I want it in. Do I want it landscape, portrait, or square? I'm going to be using this in a slide deck, so I'm going to choose landscape. It can be very concise with less detail, standard detail, or very detailed. Because it's an infographic, I chose standard for this one, but concise would work if it was going to be like, if you wanted less text. And then you describe the infographic you want to create. So very much like a prompt, I said, construct an infographic only on the source IEPs for daily instruction, highlighting the key areas and the stop this, start this suggestions. Use the source ESU3 style guide for color and font suggestions, but do not use the information from that source in the infographic. That's an important piece, because if I include that ESU3 style guide, it was sometimes pulling the hex codes and putting it into my infographic. And like maroon would show up, and navy would show up, and our logo would show up, which I don't mind the logo being in there. So then when you generate it, the infographic, that one took a little bit more time. I'd say maybe 2 or 3 minutes. And then this is what the result of that infographic was. Now, the one that I'm generating now might look slightly different than this, but that video that shows you how you can take this to Canva, it would allow you to get in there and grab the text for occlusively and change it to exclusively. And I was able to move the related services up. The way that I did that was I first downloaded it. So you're allowed to download the infographic, but you're not allowed to make any changes inside NotebookLM. If I have time later, I'll pop over to Canva and show that. But looking at the time, I want to make sure that I show you the slide deck and then we talk about when would you use NotebookLM over Gemini. So the slide deck feature is going to be very similar. I asked for it to construct a slide deck that would support me in presenting this document and the content within it. And it constructed a nice slide deck. And I asked for it to use the ESU3 colors, gave some great visuals, brought in some really good things. What I didn't like about this slide is it wasn't very accessible in reminding them that this icon goes along with present student level functioning, or that this one goes with related services. I really wished it would have put a label there. So the way that I did this prompt, similar to the last time, is you can go in and see what prompt you did. I'm going to copy that, go back to the studio. And when I'm inside a slide deck, I can get back to the studio and there's two arrows pointing at each other. It collapses what I'm in and brings me back to the studio. Again, I could just ask for it to build a slide deck with no prompt, but I want to prompt it with that pencil. I have a detailed deck or presenter slides. I want presenter slides instead of it bringing in full text and details. That would be good if I was not going to be presenting and needed to forward it to somebody and they were doing their own learning. But I really want to just get the key talking points. I can make it short, or I can use the default where it's going to decide based on the content how long of a slide deck it will make. And then I pasted in that I wanted it to include the core components of that IEP for daily instruction, followed by a slide for each of the components with a start this highlighted for each area. I wanted it to design it using the ESU3 style guide, light background with colors as text. I forgot on this one to include, use the Lexan font with titles of 24 point or higher and text 18 points or higher. And then I generate, and it's going to start constructing that. Notice it's still working on that infographic. So again, here's that slide deck that it produced for me that first time. I can play it here. And then here's the one thing that I'm really sad about. In Gemini, I can export my slides to Google Drive and edit them. Right now in NotebookLM, they do not have that capability. It is still in beta. It is on the roadmap. But as of right now, you can only download your slides as a PDF. The problem with that is when it's a PDF, it really is. Let me see if I did that. I think this is it. When it's a PDF, it's really just static images of all of your slides. So that's where it's not really beneficial to you. Let me pop back out before I leave the studio. There's that data table feature that just came in. So let me jump back to my slide deck and I will just do a quick preview for you. I don't want to lose too many of you if you're not really Canva users, but I will show you. You can edit text in Canva using Magic Grab. So I'm only going to spend about 2 minutes on this. But what I did is I opened up my Canva and I used my ESU3 account. We have access to Canva. And I was able to come in and edit that word occlusively and change it to exclusively. I was able to move related services up to the top. And then on my slide deck, I was able to add text boxes and add in the labels that I wanted. If you're newer to Canva, the way that you can do this is when you want to create something in Canva, you can upload your own files. So when I upload a file that I've saved, whether it's going to be the infographic or it was the slide deck, I'm going to go ahead and bring in my slide deck for this one that's a PDF, or actually I'll bring in this infographic. It will pull it into Canva, and there's this really nice tool in Edit that lets you grab text. So it's uploading. And because I didn't close out this one, it might upload into the exact same file that I'm in. Let me see what it's going to do here. Let me go back to the main page and try that one more time. I want it to upload in into its own new file. I'll use this in a new design. Actually, I'm just going to edit the image. I don't need a new design. And then inside here, what I'm looking for is I want to be able to edit this image in some way. So it's brought me into Magic Studio. And if I scroll across here, I want to grab text. I want all this text to become grabbable. So I'm going to open it up as a design. And it's circling here. And notice it's finding all of that. I'm not doing anything. I'm just letting it do its work. And it's finding all of that text. And I want to come in and get this text box right here so I can edit it. So I click on it and I say grab. And it's using AI to open up that text. And then I can get in there and I can change that word occlusively to exclusively. And then what I have to do is I have to go back and follow those steps again, because now it's done grabbing. I want related services moved up. I want to edit. I want to grab text again. It finds everything. And this would be the same for the slide deck. I touch related services. I grab it. And then I have, after it's done manipulating, the power to move it where I want it. And then I could download and use that. Okay, that's as far as I'm going to go. Hopefully, if you are interested in how that works, you're having to use NotebookLM and then Canva to manipulate it. So with the rest of the time that we have, I want to share with you a little bit of the thinking of when you would use Gemini or NotebookLM, because I've exposed you to both of them and you might be using both of them. Sometimes you're leaning towards one over the other just because you're familiar with it, but there's a very specific time when you would want to use one over the other. And choosing the right AI tool is important. If you like the layout of this infographic, I created it in Gemini and then prompted it a little bit more and prompted it a little bit more to be more succinct. But you would want to use Gemini as a web expert. And that's if you're trying to find information beyond what you already have. So you want it to go out onto the internet and pull from resources on the internet. You want it to search the web. So here's some examples: getting the latest news, state laws, or educational trends, help with writing something like emails and newsletters. Or if you really want that capability where the tool right now will export out to Google Drive and let you customize and edit it. Now, NotebookLM, choose that if you already have your sources that you really want to point to, and you don't need it going out to the web to be an expert in pulling in additional resources. So for example, I really wanted all of my information in NotebookLM to be pointing to that document of IEPs and daily instruction. And sometimes I have other sources like slide decks and maybe it's state legislation law. I only want it to look at this. So you want it to study your specific files without going out to the internet. And then in this, every answer in NotebookLM will point you back to where it got that answer in your sources. And then there's a lot of accessibility features within there. It can turn it into a podcast, a video. It can create a quiz to help support your learning, flashcards. It can do a lot of things. But it's important to know in NotebookLM, you won't use as many tokens. And tokens are going to be little characters for all of your searches. So if I was in Gemini and attaching a 38-page PDF and asking it lots of questions, it's going to start to hallucinate. This happened with some teachers. We uploaded the ELA standards, which is about 40 some pages, and they were working on asking for it to analyze the standards, give success criteria around the standard, activities to support learners around that standard. And then it started just giving them fake standards and fake information. And the teachers had the printed standards in front of them. And they said, this is not one of our standards. It started hallucinating because it had ran out of tokens in their conversation. When you go to NotebookLM and you put those standards in there, it's not likely to do that because it's not pulling tokens from that source of the standards in there. So some things to keep in mind. And then I put a couple more examples here. If you want to read a new 50-page state policy, you might want to choose NotebookLM because it's just going to look at that document and give you some good tools to help you synthesize that and listen to it or get a video on it. If you want to write something like an email to a parent, Gemini is better at doing that. If you want to find out what other schools are doing, Gemini, because it's going to go search for all the other things in education. If you want to understand feedback from a survey, put it in NotebookLM because it's only going to look at your survey for that. In the end, it's kind of like when I pull a tool at home, I can use a hammer or a screwdriver. They each have a specific purpose. I have used a screwdriver like a hammer before. Anybody else use a screwdriver and try to hammer in something because you're too lazy to go get the actual hammer? I've done that. But in this, there are some purposes around this that you want to consider. So as we finish out today, I would like you to open up in the chat and share the Gemini AI new feature from today that you're most likely to use because you're excited about it. So what are you excited about? And then share why. So if you say, I'm excited about the Canvas Google slide, tell me why. I'm excited about NotebookLM infographic. Tell me why. What are you thinking of doing with it? As you're thinking of that, I'll also give a little shout out. We're going to be having Christine Qualman and Adam Larson as the lead presenters February 24th. They're going to be sharing some tips around AI prompting, adding in the human to your AI prompting. And then I included the link to that playlist. Bill included the link to the style guide. And Bill, as we read people's comments coming in, anything that you would like to add from some of what we covered today?
No, I see Amy put something in there about moving things to Canvas slides. Lori Kerr just showed in Canva the ability at PDO earlier this week, the ability to check slides in Canva for accessibility, and then allows you to just say, yep, I need to fix these things when it comes back, which I think is a great feature inside Canva.
Thanks for that. Yeah, the Canva tool, remember that was just, I just interjected that one in case you really want to edit something out of NotebookLM, but Canva is a whole other amazing tool platform that has a lot of features within it. Thank you, Jason. I'm glad that's going to help make your tools for presentations even better. And I didn't get to show the quizzes in the, I didn't get to show the quizzes and flashcards in here, but that's a good little tool for your participants. You can share a notebook that you build for them with your participants if they're in your domain, they work in your same organization. And that's a nice little tool to help your participants get through some information also. Well, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and thank everybody for joining. And hopefully you can join all of us on the 24th. Have a great Friday.